Got to be disappointed with that draw at 3-3.
The Cleveland Indians are bringing the winning run to the plate.
Ooh.
Chicago took an 8-6 lead in the top of the 10th. Rajai Davis just had an RBI single to make it 8-7. He's on first. He'll probably try to steal second, a la Dave Roberts, whose manager Terry Francona sent him back in 2004, try to get in scoring position. Two guys you never heard of, pitcher and hitter, will decide the 2016 World Series in Cleveland. Our full post-game coverage could be minutes away.
Part of the RV sponsorship, I guess.
Mm-hmm. More subtle than I was thinking.
We're not done.
Oh. That's a potato cake. That's what that is.
All right, have a good show.
All righty.
Arby's. Scott has the meats.
Now that FedEx has helped us simplify our e-commerce, we can focus on bigger issues, like our passive-aggressive environment.
We're not passive-aggressive.
Hey. There are no bad suggestions here, no matter how lame they are.
Well said, Anne. I've always admired how you just say what's in your head without thinking. Very brave.
Good point, Ted. You're living proof that looks aren't everything.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, FedEx helps simplify our e-commerce business, and this is not a passive-aggressive environment.
I just want to say you guys are doing a great job.
What's that supposed to mean?
FedEx, helping small business simplify e-commerce.
Unleash your refreshing citrus kick. Do the do.
Here at ESPN, we expect the unexpected. That's why it's important to be ready for anything, whether on the court, on the set, or out on the road.
Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
You both have a perfect driving record.
Until one of you clips a food truck.
Then your rates go through the roof. Perfect.
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise your rates due to your first accident. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Polaris makes the off-roads best, and now is the time to buy. Take your pick of legendary Sportsman, the best-selling automatic ATVs, and get rebates up to $800. Grab a Razor XP 1000, the best-selling sports side-by-side, and get a $3,000 rebate. Or take the wheel of the world's most powerful utility side-by-side, the all-new 80-horsepower Ranger XP 1000. Hurry in for huge deals during the Polaris Full Throttle Sales Event.
This is Lynchburg, Tennessee. This is how many people were born here. This is how many are named Hiawatha Kitty McGee. This guy keeps the town dry. These guys would prefer it a little wet. This many are proud of what we make here. This is how many will go around bragging about it. This is our town. For 150 years, the home of Jack Daniels. If you can't get here, just look for one of our postcards. They look like this.
Get Hulu and get the shows you love in one place. Get the new episodes, past seasons too, plus originals, exclusive series, hit movies. Right now, you can get Hulu for just $5.99 a month. Hulu, come TV with us.
24.
There you see it.
The world has come to an end. The Cubs have won. The satellites are falling from the sky.
People in hell are going, man, is it cold.
Final score in Cleveland, Ohio, 8-7. The Chicago Cubs, for the first time since 1908, are World Series champions. The city is about to erupt in what likely will be the biggest sporting celebration that city has ever seen. They've had some big ones with the Blackhawks recently.
Yep.
But this one, John, I think is going to be at a whole nother level.
I wonder how you rank those, right? Because the Bears Super Bowl right now, I think, is probably #1 in Chicago. Does this exceed that?
I think it does.
And I would think, right? I mean, if you waited 108 years, 7 games, and then after a brief rain delay, 1 inning. I mean, these people have shown some patience, and now they are showing their emotions.
They've been playing baseball since the 19th century. The Chicago Cubs, the National League.
An original National League franchise.
That's right. And you can see this is about grandparents and fathers, great-grandparents, and sons and daughters and moms.
Generations that have passed.
Rizzos and Rizzos. And now Chicago is about to erupt And, of course, we can't forget the city of Cleveland. Yes, they had the Cavaliers, but for hardcore baseball fans, this is still a sad moment for them. They were so close, as it turned out. Bottom of the ninth in a tie game. The heart of the lineup with Atari and Aroldis Chapman. They couldn't quite get it done. And even when the game ended, the winning run was at the plate. The tying run was also on, but Michael Martinez hit a soft grounder to Chris Bryant. And Bryant certainly in that MVP discussion, but with Ben Zobrist's big hit in the top of the 10th, and overall a pretty good series. Perhaps Ben Zobrist will be the World Series MVP. You would think it would be Zobrist or Chris Bryant, but
fought right to the end. Got down 2-8-6 and still managed to scratch out another run. You saw it briefly there. They are hanging the ultimate W finally for the Cubbies, who were down 3-1 in this series. Come back from a 3-1 deficit. First time that has happened since the '85 Royals, when they did against the Cardinals, and both those were at the K. They went back to Kauffman Stadium. At the time, it was Royal Stadium. Went back there after losing in St. Louis, and won both those games at home. And there you see, Cubs.
Very poignant.
It was so close last year.
World Series champions. There are green apples. How about those green apples, Harry Carey? As they are the last time the Cubs, we've heard a lot of the last time the Cubs have won a World Series since. My favorite I saw was the last time the Cubs won a World Series, Mark Twain was still alive. That was my favorite one. We've seen 2 Haley Comets since the Cubs last won a World Series. And finally tonight, it is over. And of course, right at the top of the list when you think about this accomplishment is Theo Epstein. To be a part of the Red Sox in 2004. A lot of that foundation was already there when he was hired as a 28-year-old. But now, from scratch, he built this pretty much from scratch, he and his baseball operations department. And there will be tears, there will be beer, there will be Bill Murray, Eddie Vedder, and Chris Chelios. And there are the tears right there in Chicago.
There you go, honey.
We have, of course, ESPN reporters on the ground. We talked with Matt Berry during the rain delay in Chicago to get a sense. And at the time we talked to Matt, hope was low. They were expecting the worst. I think 3. You could see that.
He had a 3.
Rajai Davis, huge home run that sent LeBron James in a giant baseball tizzy, the likes we've never seen. And then with Aroldis Chapman clearly out of gas in the bottom of the 9th, he had no fastball left, and pretty much with sliders. He got Jason Kipnis, Carlos Santana, and Francisco Lindor to get out of that. And from there, the Cubs came back in the top of the 10th to take a 2-run lead, held on in the bottom of the 10th with Mike Montgomery getting the final out on the mound, getting Michael Martinez to hit a soft tapper to Chris Bryant with the tying run on. The W is flying, and the Cubs fans are singing.
Cub fans are singing. So that is the scene in Chicago, the city of champions, Believe Land. Certainly, folks filing out of the ballpark there at Progressive Field in a dour mood after coming so close, being up 3-1. Tim Kirkshin is in Cleveland. And Timmy, I know again at least you don't have quite as rowdy a crowd behind you as the first time we've talked, but I would like you just to simply put this Game 7 in perspective for us.
Well, that's one of the greatest Game 7s that has ever been played. It was an extra inning game. It had back and forth. A 4-run lead was lost. It was 5-1, and then it was 6-3. That lead was lost in the 8th inning. It was historic on so many different levels with what David Ross did, the home run by Rajai Davis, the relief appearance by Aroldis Chapman. That's 97 pitches from him in the last 4 days. But in the end, John, this was the Cubs finally starting to hit. They scored 7 runs in the first 4 games of this series, but they scored 20 runs in the last 3 games. But when you take this whole Game 7 scenario, all the storylines, the Indians drought, the Cubs drought, the 2 managers, the Theo Epstein dynamic, the Corey Kluber dynamic, you could make a case that this was the biggest night in baseball history. And then we got a game to match it, 8-7, one of the most amazing nights I've ever spent in a Major League ballpark. Just tremendous.
Timmy, that is a great first draft of history. Sit tight. We've got more to talk with you in Cleveland, but we want to go out to Chicago because those people are cuckoo.
And Matt Berry is there. He's the party organizer. All right, Matt, what do you see right now? Give us a take.
Bucci, I'm the social chair. I'm just going to step out of the way, and I'm going to let the picture tell the story. These people wanted nothing to do with baseball an hour ago. Look at them now. They are loving their first World Championship in 108 years. Mind you, they haven't had a drink since the 5th inning because they cut off alcohol sales. Let me get this guy real quick. Put this into words if you could.
This can't end well.
Best day ever! Go Cubs, go! Look, they waited, Bucci. They waited, Anderson. Wrigley Field outside, thousands of fans outside. They're flying the W flag. They've waited so long for this moment. And it was such an up and down. This bar, I've never heard anything like this. I've really never seen anything like this. They had been partying all night here. Dexter Fowler led off the game with a home run. They had the lead for the better part of it. Then we saw what happened late in the game for the Indians to come back and tie it. These people were stunned. We had to check their pulse. And then all of a sudden, extra innings went down, and now the Cubs are world champions. We do want to point a couple of things out. There's a city ordinance here in Chicago. One about the alcohol sales, I told you a second ago, but two, they're taking the crowd outside of the bar. They're now going out to Addison just outside Wrigley Field, just across from Wrigley Field, where the crowd will then pour onto the streets and celebrate outside Wrigley Field. A celebration that's 108 years in the making. I spoke to a Cubs fan earlier tonight. He's in his mid-70s. He told me that when he was a kid, he lied to his parents about being on a Little League team so that he could ride his bike with his friends that were 10 years old to come to Wrigley Field. He said he hasn't been back down here since because he moved away, and he came to this bar tonight for Game 7, and he got to witness a World Series. An incredible atmosphere out here tonight. The Chicago Cubs have done it, and no one is going to sleep, including me, gentlemen. What a moment it is here at Wrigley Field.
Great job, Matt. Almost midnight there, of course, Central Time Zone City. Midnight coming up, game again almost 5 hours to go, and like Matt said, they're heading out there. You see the bar emptying out there in Chicago.
Yeah, you better not take roll at work tomorrow because most of those folks aren't coming. We're going back to Tim Kirkshin in Cleveland. Tim, we talked about how historic the game that was played was tonight in Game 7. How about just the fact the Cubs have won a World Series and what that means to baseball?
Well, 108 years is so long ago, it's unbelievable. Just understand that when the Cubs last won the World Series, they hit 19 home runs the entire season. That's how the game was played back then. It's just amazing. So now the great part for baseball, at least I think, is we don't have to talk about the Billy Goats and the Black Cats and Steve Bartman anymore. He is off the hook. And I think it's great for baseball because now we can change the subject and talk about some other things. But it's remarkable how they did this, John, to come this quickly. You know, when Theo Epstein got there, he promised everyone, look, we're going to be really patient about this. We're going to be methodical. And for a while there, people were wondering, what is taking you so long? But what the Cubs did was they built this the right way from the ground up. And to get there this quickly is truly remarkable. I think they were a year ahead of schedule. I thought they might be a world champion next year instead of this year. But when you look at the club they put together, man, that is really impressive. They were the best team in baseball, I felt, from the first day of the season until tonight, the last day of the season.
Trust the process, Timmy. Thanks so much. Thank you very much, Tim. Enjoy the night.
John.
Cubs already the favorite for next year, 3-1. This is a young team, and that's the question, Roland Banya, is you look at those Yankee teams, late 90s, when they had that core four, and they were able to surround them with veterans and a good manager, and they went on to win multiple championships. Do you see this team be able to win 2, 3, 4 championships?
Absolutely. When you talk about the position players that they have in Chris Bryant, Schwarber, Rizzo, Contreras behind the dish, Baez, Russell, you're talking about the heart and soul of this ball club. Guys that can really, really play baseball. Ben Zobrist is there for the next few years. So their lineup is really solid, solidified. They've got huge big-time pitchers that are under contract in the starting rotation. They'll probably go out and get a little bullpen help as they need it.
They will do that, yeah.
But they're going to be competitive for years to come. Future's very bright.
As a ball player that's been in the league for 20 years, what does it mean to you that the Cubs have won a World Series? I mean, is that something that's talked about within the game itself?
Yeah, at times you hear it. I mean, we watched the punchlines for how many years? My entire life. We've been talking about these punchlines for years.
All right, we cut a roll a bit short because we wanted to hear from Tito Francona. Took it to Game 7, came up short for the Indians.
That was quite a series, and you knew somebody was going to go home happy. But they deserve a lot of congratulations, and also just a quick thought that, it's hard not to think of Mike Hirschbeck on a night when, you see John umpiring his last game, so that was kind of in our thoughts too. Okay.
Take just a few questions. Jordan? Yeah.
Tito, just what can you say about, especially the late innings, just the fight that the guys showed, kind of been the signature all season for you guys?
That was an incredible game, I mean, to be a part of. And I talked before the game about being an honor to be in a game like that, but to be associated with those players in that clubhouse, it is an honor. And I just told them that, it's going to hurt. It hurts because we care. But they need to walk with their head held high because they left nothing on the field. And that's all the things we ever asked them to do. They tried until there was nothing left.
Who else? Okay, on the aisle.
Terry, when Rajai ties it up there and you go to the bottom of the ninth with the top of the order, thoughts going through your head that maybe the storybook ending's going to happen?
We get so caught up in the game, you don't think about what your emotions are going to be or things like that. You're trying desperately to find a way to win a game. The emotions come after, whether it's good or bad, or you don't think about storybooks and stuff like that. You're trying to figure out a way to score one more run.
Jordan.
Can you just speak to what Corey and Andrew gave you throughout the playoffs and then what you saw from them in this game?
Yeah, I mean, what we ask our guys, for our starters to have the guts to take the ball like Corey Kluber 3 times in a series and the other 2 guys, this is Trevor's 3rd time, and our relievers to be available for that much, that often, and be that effective. It's not luck. It's just, it's will. And I think at times tonight they proved they're human. But without them, we don't get anywhere close to here.
One more if there's anything. Okay, last question.
Hey, Terry, what were you thinking during the rain delay, and what impact do you think it had on the way extra innings played out?
What was I thinking? Went to the bathroom. I mean, I'm not sure it was only about 10 minutes. I don't think it had much of an impact. Brian Shaw, if there's one guy that you're going to have that happen to, because he bounces back so quickly, and he was fine. That had nothing to do with it.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Thanks for everything.
Highest of the highs with the Red Sox, of course, in 2004, won another one. That's a tough one. Again, that bottom of the ninth with the heart of the lineup when Chapman was done. Kipnis swung in a bad pitch, could have been ball 4. They got a guy on there. They're looking pretty good.
Momentum goes that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But think about Rajai Davis's at bat. He chokes up this far on the bat. He takes a couple of emergency hacks, and then he catches one. Just trying to put the ball in play, trying to hit a hard line drive somewhere, just trying to put the ball in play, and he scorches a homer. That moment was one of the most extraordinary moments I've ever experienced in Major League Baseball. I was
that big,
blown away. It was huge, just incredible.
And really an extraordinary run for the Indians. You heard Terry Francona, but that pitching staff, their starting rotation wasn't what it was supposed to be. They weren't supposed to get by the Red Sox, let alone Toronto get to this thing. So what they have set up, we talk about the Cubs for years to come, maybe ready. Cleveland's not exactly, doesn't look like it's a one-and-done situation either. They've got some guys that can play, and they could very well be back and be good for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah, with Kluber under contract. Remember, guys, they're 2 and 3 starters in Carrasco and Salazar. Yeah. Both of those guys went down. So they really went this far into the postseason, the Game 7 of the World Series, with a 1, 4, and 5 starter and just a tremendous bullpen. Guys that were getting asked to do huge workloads, just doing extraordinary things in the postseason. You got to tip your hat to this team. These guys fought to the end.
You've played in Chicago, of course, in both leagues. What's your taste of the city? What did you think about when you played baseball in Chicago? What was the texture playing in Wrigley Field and playing in Comiskey?
It's a beautiful city, first and foremost, one of my favorites. And but playing in Comiskey and playing in Wrigley is totally different. The people in Wrigley are very, very passionate. Comiskey, in U.S. Cellular Field, right, they're really passionate too, but it's a totally different vibe. You always went to Wrigley Field thinking they were just happy to be in the bleachers and having a good time, and they wanted to heckle you. Don't get me wrong. They weren't nice by any stretch of the imagination, but they were happy to be there. They loved the Cubbies. They loved what they represented, but it was okay. It was like a big party out there. It was different.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with just going to the ballpark to enjoy yourself, right? No. But if there was something, a knock against the Cubs sometimes, it was that they were certainly content to some degree with their mediocrity, because there was nothing better than having an old style and sitting out in the bleachers at Wrigley. And what is it Lee Elia says? You know, somebody around the 80% work, and the other folks are out here when they come through. I don't know where you put that this game spun tonight, as much it was a comment on the whole team and maybe the toughness that team had for a season that had gone pretty smoothly. You know, they had a little drought there in the middle, but they won 103 games, and they breezed through the playoffs until they get to this. And in a really clutch moment, they showed that they had some mettle.
Huge. Chris Bryant, base running was huge. He scored 2 runs because of his base running. It's just tremendous.
That's all for us.
As you heard here first this season from John Butchiegross, the Cubs are going to win the World Series. And they did. Scott Van Pelt's next.
First reported.